After being reborn, Lily didn't care that her manipulative, two-faced friend was about to marry a future domestic abuser. Back when they had first moved to the rural countryside, they realized there was no hope left of returning to the city, so they decided to settle down and get married locally. However, at that time, the matchmaker only had 2 men available to set them up with. Megan chose to marry a coal miner, looking forward to a comfortable life where she wouldn't have to break her back doing farm labor. Meanwhile, Lily ended up marrying a widower. Unexpectedly, the mine later closed down. Megan's husband lost his job, and his temperament became highly erratic, eventually turning him into a domestic abuser. On the other hand, in the eyes of outsiders, Lily's husband was a military man, and her married life appeared incredibly happy. Consumed by jealousy, Megan eventually asked Lily to hang out, only to push her off a cliff. Hi everyone, if you could turn back time, would you change your choices? Today's story follows 2 girls given a second chance. One tries to steal an easy life, while the other builds her own future. Let's dive in. Reborn once again, Megan immediately chose Lily's husband from their previous life, even telling Lily that in this life, she was going to let Lily enjoy the good fortune. But Megan didn't know that absolutely everything Lily had achieved came at the cost of her own blood, sweat, and tears. Lily, that man is a miner, so he definitely has money. If you marry him, you won't have to work so hard on the farm anymore, Megan coaxed. Seeing Megan make a completely different choice compared to their past life, Lily instantly woke up to the truth. Both she and Megan had been reborn, returning to the exact day the matchmaker came to their house, the very moment they had to make their decision. The shattering pain from the fatal fall was completely gone. At this moment, Megan was still trying her best to persuade her. Lily, the matchmaker said the miner has had his eye on you for a long time. If you marry him, you'll live much more comfortably. Lily blinked her big round eyes at her and asked, "But what about you? Do you really want to marry that widower? You're such a young woman after all." At first glance, these words sounded as if Lily were genuinely worried about her, but in reality, Lily was only trying to confirm if Megan truly wanted to make this choice in this life. She just watched as Megan sighed heavily. What other choice do we have? Right now, there are only those 2 men. We're women. Don't we still have to rely on men anyway? Lily, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. Lily sneered inwardly. Megan really knew how to put on a caring act. If she hadn't asked Lily out for a walk in their past life and pushed her off a cliff, Lily probably would have believed those sweet words. The matchmaker asked impatiently, "So have you 2 decided?" Megan said decisively, "It's decided. Lily will marry the miner, and I'll take the other one." Her eyes couldn't hide her smugness. Lily cast her gaze downward, thinking to herself, did Megan really believe that marrying that man would bring her happiness? His situation wasn't nearly as simple as the matchmaker made it out to be. In their previous life, Lily and Megan were both best friends and high school classmates. After graduating, they, along with several others, moved from the city to the rural countryside to do manual labor. As time passed, they gradually realized that their hopes of returning to the city were incredibly slim. It was then that the locals began arranging marriages for them. There was a widower and a coal miner who had never been married. In that past life, Megan had eagerly chosen the miner first, leaving the other man for Lily. Little did anyone expect that Megan's comfortable life wouldn't last long at all. Before long, the mine was shut down. Her husband lost his job, completely broke down, and spent his days hopelessly drunk. Whenever he was intoxicated, Megan's husband beat her mercilessly, making her suffer to the point where she wished she were dead. As for the man Lily married, he turned out to be a military man. Everyone assumed Lily was loved and protected by him, but the truth of what really went on inside the Lawson household was something only Lily knew. Years later, when they were older, Megan went into the city and happened to bump into Lily. Megan took the initiative to ask her out for a walk, saying that they had been close sisters for so many years and hadn't chatted in a long time. Lily, not suspecting a single thing, happily accepted. But she never expected that when they reached the edge of the cliff, Megan would suddenly shove her violently over the edge, with eyes full of malice. "Why do you get to live such a happy life while I suffer every single day? It's not fair." But due to her own momentum, Megan lost her balance and fell down with Lily. Both of them died at the bottom of the abyss. In this life, Lily watched Megan make a completely different choice than in their previous life. Lily sneered inwardly. Let's see if Megan could endure the same hardships that Lily had been forced to endure in her past life. On that day, Lily and Megan both left for their respective weddings. The The miner's family brought over a large amount of pork, and the betrothal gifts were very generous. Lily wore a brand new red wedding dress, waiting for him to pick her up. Meanwhile, Megan's side was incredibly bare, with hardly any notable betrothal gifts at all. She wore a faded, washed-out outfit, and the only thing indicating her status as a bride was a single red flower pinned to her chest. Her eyes couldn't stop glancing at Lily's gifts. She was so consumed with jealousy that she unconsciously dug her fingernails into her hands. It was worth noting that before they moved to the rural countryside, Megan had always been the one who loved dressing up the most. She was constantly chasing the latest fashion trends, but now she had absolutely nothing. Her in-laws lived far away, so it would be a while before they arrived to pick up the bride. The miner, on the other hand, arrived early to take Lily away. Before leaving, Lily stopped by Megan's room. Megan looked at her and said, "Lily, I don't believe in fate. I have always believed that in this life, I am absolutely destined for wealth and prosperity." Lily smiled and replied, "Megan, it's good that you have such ambition. As the party has always said, you have to use your own hands to create wealth." Unexpectedly, Megan let out a mocking laugh. "Lily, you're still as naive as ever." Lily didn't pay any more attention to her, turning around to leave with the miner, Ethan. He had prepared very carefully for this wedding. Along the way, quite a few villagers gathered around to watch the excitement. Even when she stepped into his house, Lily still felt like she was in a dream. She had truly been reborn. This time, she no longer had to wake up to work before the sky was even bright and toil away until midnight, like in her past life. Lily finally got a good, restful night's sleep. The next morning, when she woke up, the delicious aroma of food had already spread throughout the house. She walked to the kitchen and saw Ethan busy cooking. Seeing her, his eyes lit up. "You're awake? Hurry and wash your face, then come have breakfast." Lily felt a little embarrassed. After all, the mindset of that era was still very traditional. People believed that women should stay at home to have children, take care of the family, do the laundry, and cook. As long as a husband didn't have affairs, he was considered a good man. In her previous life, her mother-in-law had constantly drilled those thoughts into her head. Even the surrounding neighbors would say that marrying a military man was a woman's greatest blessing. It wasn't until later, when she moved to the city and the winds of reform blew everywhere, that she saw many women stepping out into society to build their careers, while some men stayed at home as homemakers. Only then did her perception gradually change. At the dining table, Ethan, despite being the host, actually appeared a bit bashful. He continuously placed food into her bowl and said, "If you want to come to the mine to help me, that's fine too. If you don't want to, just tell me. I'll help you find another job." Looking at his honest, sincere expression, Lily couldn't help but tease him. "What if I just want to stay home and sleep?" He froze, seemingly not expecting her to say that. She had thought he would say something along the lines of, "You can't just stay at home forever." But he only smiled gently. "A wife is meant to be cherished. You can do whatever you want. It's just that earlier the matchmaker said you were very hardworking. I was afraid you'd get bored staying at home all the time, which is why I—" Lily burst out laughing, cutting him off. "I'm not going to stay at home. I'll find something to do myself." He smiled too, his eyes crinkling into the shape of crescent moons. "All right." After the meal, Ethan led her into the bedroom. He moved several large trunks that were stacked on top of each other and opened the bottommost one. From inside, he pulled out a small bundle. He unwrapped the red cloth layer by layer. Inside were thousands of paper bills. Although the denominations were not large, they were stacked neatly and tidily. Lily froze in astonishment. She hadn't expected Ethan to have this much money. Was Megan really willing to give up such a wealthy man to her? He handed all the money to Lily, awkwardly scratching his head with a slightly embarrassed expression. "I was supposed to give this to you last night, but I didn't get the chance. Giving it to you today isn't too late, though. This is all the money I've saved up. I'm handing it all over for you to manage." Even though she had lived 2 lives, Lily still felt incredibly moved in that moment. This was the trust he had in her, something she had never experienced in her previous life. In that military man's house, she had been guarded against her entire life. His whole family was a pack of ungrateful wolves who never appreciated anything she did for them. Lily accepted the money and told him seriously, "Don't worry, I will definitely manage it carefully and won't spend it recklessly." Before she could even finish her sentence, Ethan burst into laughter and cut her off. "What do men earn money for, if not for their wives to spend? I didn't have a wife before, so I saved it up. Now that you've married me, just spend it however you like." I work in the mine. Where would I even spend money? You don't need to worry." Hearing these words, Lily silently swore to herself that in this life, she would absolutely not let him fall into a state of unemployment with no way out. After living with him for a day, Lily realized that Ethan was an honest and hardworking man. He certainly didn't seem like the kind of guy who would beat his wife. She suddenly recalled a scene from her previous life when Megan came to show off. Megan had been wearing a pretty floral dress, her hair tied in 2 braids, as she gleefully said to Lily, "Lily, my life is so good now. Every day I eat well and dress beautifully, and I don't have to do a single thing. Every week, Ethan and I even go into the city to buy clothes. The only thing is, Ethan is too wasteful when he treats his friends to meals. We could obviously just order boxed lunches, but he always insists on dragging everyone to a restaurant. It's so incredibly expensive." Then later, when Megan came crying to complain about her miseries, she whined that Ethan's friends saw their struggles, yet no one was willing to help him find a new job. Lily guessed that with Megan's personality, she had probably offended every single one of his friends. In this life, Lily absolutely wouldn't make the same mistake. Megan thought that as long as she married a good man, she would have a happy life. But Lily only wanted to say one thing: happiness is something you create with your own hands. A few days later, Ethan took Lily to the local open-air market. Amidst the crowd, she spotted Megan, looking completely exhausted, dragging 3 children along with her. The 3 little kids demanded everything they saw, whining and crying non-stop. Megan clutched a few small bills tightly in her hand, her eyes lingering outside a clothing stall, but she couldn't bring herself to buy an outfit for herself. However, she also refused to buy anything for the 3 kids. As a result, the children burst into tears, crying and screaming in the middle of the street. "You wicked stepmother! You won't buy us anything." Passers-by all stopped to look, gossiping in a buzz. Megan, who had always cared deeply about saving face, was completely humiliated. Gritting her teeth, she was forced to agree to buy things for the children. Lily stood in the crowd, watching the scene unfold before her, feeling as though she were in another world. In her previous life, after marrying the divorced man, Lily had finally realized that despite his status as a military man, remarrying was no easy task for him because he was bringing along 3 young children. The children's grandmother worried that if the new daughter-in-law had a baby, her son would favor the new child, and her 3 grandchildren would be neglected. Therefore, she set a strict condition: the woman who married into their family would not be allowed to have children of her own. It wasn't until she saw her son remaining lonely for so long that she grew anxious, discussing with the matchmaker to hastily find him a wife. Lily had been married off into that house, completely unaware of this bizarre rule. Only after the wedding did they blatantly lay out the condition right in front of her. In her previous life, not only did Lily never have children of her own, bookmo back, but she also dedicated her entire heart and soul to raising her husband's 3 stepchildren. She educated them to be good people and helped them get into college. But who could have expected that? Just like their father, they were a bunch of ungrateful wretches. At the celebration party for their college admission, they declared in front of everyone, "A stepmother like you doesn't deserve to stand on this stage. We are only grateful to our biological mother for giving birth to us with such intelligence." Their ingratitude didn't stop there. In her old age, Lily contracted a severe illness. If she had received timely treatment, she could have lived. But what did they do? Every single one of them stepped forward to accuse her of being harsh to them in the past, claiming that she didn't deserve to be their mother and that she should just be left to fend for herself and die. In that moment, her heart had turned cold to the bone. "Lily, what are you looking at?" Ethan's voice pulled her back to reality. She lowered her head, gently smoothed her hair, and smiled. "Just watching the commotion. Let's go, let's head home." But as soon as she looked up, she caught Megan's gaze piercing through the crowd, staring fixedly at her. Ethan went to buy a few things, leaving Lily to wait in place. Not long after, Megan appeared in front of her with a gloomy expression. The 3 children from earlier were no longer trailing behind her. She opened her mouth, her voice full of reproach. "Lily, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Arthur's 3 kids are so mischievous. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? And his mother too. She's so old and still hasn't died, yet she's as fierce as a tiger. Why didn't you say anything?" The moment the words left her mouth, they were full of accusations. Arthur Lawson was the name of that military man. Lily pretended not to understand. "What are you talking about?" In their previous life, not long after getting married, Lily had moved to the city to live, so Megan had never truly known the exact situation of Lily's in-laws. Lily feigned astonishment, bringing a hand to cover her mouth. Those 3 children are his? Didn't the matchmaker say he was just a widower? How could he have 3 whole kids? Megan stared intently at Lily's face, trying to find anything suspicious. But after observing her for a moment, Megan's expression gradually turned into one of confusion. Did you really not know anything? Lily continued to play dumb, shrugging her shoulders. What would I know, Megan? Didn't we both just hear the information from the matchmaker? Looking at the youthful face before her, a surge of hatred welled up in Lily's heart. In her previous life, she had been determined to drag them all down to hell with her, but Megan had seized that opportunity, causing Lily to die first. If she could, she truly wanted to kill Megan with her own 2 hands to avenge herself for her past life. However, Megan was not someone who gave in easily. She wasn't the type to swallow her grievances like Lily had been. Lily looked forward even more to the spectacle of what would happen when that vicious mother-in-law and the mama's boy husband clashed with Megan. What kind of entertaining drama would that create? Watching them tear each other apart like vicious dogs. Now that would be the most entertaining spectacle of all. Furthermore, looking at it from another angle, wasn't this life an opportunity for Lily to make up for the regrets of her previous one? Megan's expression gradually shifted, even revealing a hint of smugness. Oh, those 3 kids were left behind by his previous wife. Even though they're naughty now, they are very smart. A fortune teller even said that they will become high-ranking officials in the future. When that time comes, I'll just get to enjoy a life of luxury and wait for them to provide for me in my old age. Really? Lily feigned surprise, then offered her sincere congratulations. Megan, you are so blessed, getting 3 children all at once without even having to endure the pain of pregnancy and childbirth. Megan smirked slightly, her eyes boring into Lily. Lily, you'll have kids eventually too. But they definitely won't be as smart as mine. Oh right, your husband works in the coal mine. That's a very dangerous job. If something were to happen to him one day, then... She stopped abruptly, pretending to be remorseful, but there wasn't a trace of guilt on her face. Sorry about that. You know me, I'm just blunt. I don't mean anything by it, I just want what's best for you. Having said that, she chuckled softly, turned around, and walked away. Lily watched her retreating back and let out a cold laugh. In this life, Lily wanted to see if, without her tutoring them, without her daily supervision of those 3 children's studies, they would still be able to pass the college entrance exams and become high-ranking officials. Did Megan really think that after being reborn, everything would still play out exactly the same? The grand scheme of the world might remain unchanged, but how could insignificant people like them walk the exact same path all over again? Ethan returned after finishing his shopping. Lily glanced over and realized that everything he had bought was for her. Meanwhile, the clothes on his own back were patched up with old, worn-out pieces of fabric. He scratched his head in embarrassment, flashing an honest smile that revealed his bright, white teeth. It's fine for a man to dress a little simply, but I know you used to live in the city. I'll do my best to give you the best life possible. Lily's eyes suddenly stung with tears. Even though she had lived an entire lifetime and clearly understood that a woman's happiness had to be created by her own hands, hearing him say those words still moved her deeply. It was because, in her previous life, she had never been treated this way by any woman. In front of outsiders, Arthur Lawson had played the role of a model husband who loved his wife dearly, but behind closed doors, he was nothing more than a cowardly mama's boy without a shred of competence. Lily regained her composure and asked Ethan seriously, "If schools reopen in the future and I have a daughter, would you let her go to school?" He instantly became alert, glancing around before lowering his voice to a whisper. "Lily, you can't just casually say things like that in front of other people." He grabbed her hand, pulling her away from the crowd before saying softly, "Lily, whatever you want to do, I will support you." She looked at him, her heart filled with hope, and pressed further. "Then, what if the college entrance exams are restored in the future, and I want to continue my education?" As soon as she asked the question, her heart suddenly grew tense. Ever since she had been reborn, this thought had crossed her mind countless times. At first, she had considered going into business. Later on, when the country opened up, one could make money just by doing a little trading. But after thinking it over again and again, she still wanted to get an education. In her previous life, Arthur's eldest son had failed the college entrance exam twice. She had discovered that every time he retook it, he never studied seriously and was only focused on dating. She had to personally supervise his studies, And at the same time, his second and third children, the twins, were also preparing for the exams. Managing all three of them by herself, one could only imagine how grueling it had been for her. It was precisely because of those years of exhausting labor that she later developed a severe illness. In this life, she was going to take the college entrance exams herself. She was absolutely determined to get into a good school. Ethan froze for a moment, seemingly weighing something in his mind, but he didn't answer immediately. Lily's heart gradually sank. She didn't blame him. After all, even after the country's economic reforms, there were still many people who believed that women didn't need too much education, let alone Ethan in the present day. She tried to keep her tone light, not wanting to reveal her disappointment. "Never mind, let's just go home." In her mind, she was already beginning to calculate. If he truly didn't agree to let her study, perhaps she would have to figure out a way to get a divorce in order to pursue her own freedom. But just as she was about to turn away, he suddenly pulled her hand back, his expression incredibly serious. "I agree to let you study. I know you finished high school. Even though it's uncertain right now whether the exams will be restored, I support you." Lily was stunned. It felt as though something in her heart had been touched, sparking a ray of hope. She suddenly felt perplexed. Since Ethan was clearly someone with such progressive ideas, why had Megan's daughter in their previous life only studied up to elementary school before dropping out? Could it be that all of that was caused by Megan's own hands? Regardless, Lily wouldn't rush to trust anyone. Time would give her the answers. No matter what, the scars on Megan's arms from their previous life were not fake, because she had deliberately tried to find out. Lily quickly grasped the situation in Megan's household. Her mother-in-law had laid down dozens of harsh rules, and coupled with the alienation from the three stepchildren, Megan's life was nothing short of a living hell. Hearing this news, Lily was actually a bit disappointed. Could it be that Megan was really just a paper tiger who only knew how to bully the weak, but immediately gave in when facing someone stronger? But not long after, the situation changed. Rumor had it that Megan had recently started crying to the neighbors, complaining about her hardships. She claimed that her mother-in-law kept all of Arthur's salary, leaving the three children clamoring for food, skinny down to their bones. She said it was fine if the old woman was guarded against her, but she simply couldn't let the children suffer. Lily knew exactly what Arthur's mother was really like. She wasn't someone who didn't love her grandchildren. She was just guarded against outsiders like them. She wouldn't hand over the money, but she still saved the good food for the three children and Arthur. As for her clutching tightly onto the salary and refusing to let go, well, it was true that no one else could do anything about it. However, Megan's trick actually worked. The old woman couldn't stand the gossip of the town and eventually had to compromise, handing over the salary. She even gave all the food and meat ration coupons to Megan. What was even more surprising was that someone had actually seen the old woman doing household chores. It was true that when encountering someone tougher, even wicked people had to back down. A short time later, Megan was thriving. Holding Arthur's salary, she immediately had a new outfit tailor-made for herself. As for the three children, naturally, she didn't care about them at all. From beginning to end, Megan only ever loved herself. In their previous life, when Ethan had an accident, his injuries could still have been treated. But when he asked Megan for money, she didn't have a single cent in savings. Because of this, he missed the best window of time to treat his legs. Not only that, after receiving Ethan's compensation money, she spent it all on herself. She had given birth to a daughter with Ethan, but she was terribly harsh to the girl. As a result, right when she reached working age, her daughter ran away from home with a man and never returned. It wasn't until Megan reached her old age that she started thinking about relying on her daughter to live. The saying she repeated the most was, "It is better to dream of roses than to bow your head and plant rice." Megan, the central figure of the recent town gossip, took the initiative to seek Lily out to show off. This time, she didn't hide it anymore and went straight to the point. "Lily, I had a dream. In the dream, you and I swapped lives." Megan babbled endlessly about their past life, but her story conveniently stopped at the part where Arthur's three stepchildren graduated from college and became high-ranking officials. She didn't mention a single word about pushing Lily off the cliff. "Lily, that dream was so realistic that I decided to choose Arthur. You aren't mad at me, are you?" Lily looked up from her book and smiled. "It was just a dream, Megan. You've always been a dreamer. In your dream, it seems like I lived a very good life, but like you said, it was only a dream." The corners of Megan's mouth curled up in full mockery. But right now, a lot of the details are matching up. Lily, if I hadn't married Arthur, I would have thought you truly had a happy family and a perfect life. It turns out it's nothing special at all. Look at me. I've dealt with that old woman until she's perfectly obedient. If those 3 kids want to eat, they have to suck up to me without daring to make a peep. Living like you did, weren't you just too much of a pushover? Lily looked at her and said calmly, Megan, if what you say is true, then in this life you are absolutely destined for wealth and prosperity. She immediately nodded with arrogance. Of course. Her eyes suddenly swept over Lily's book. In the blink of an eye, her voice became so piercing it felt like it would puncture Lily's eardrums. Lily, you're reading a book? You want to take the college entrance exam? You remember our past life too, don't you? She already had the life she wanted, so why was she still obsessing over Lily's every move? Lily slowly closed the book and looked at her. Megan, you can only say these things to me. If anyone else hears you, they'll think you've gone crazy. Didn't you already get the life you desired? Why do you still care so much about me? Megan stared at Lily intently. Their eyes met, neither willing to back down. After a long while, Megan suddenly burst out laughing. Lily, I don't care whether you remember our past life or not, but there's one thing I am absolutely certain of. She leaned in close to Lily's ear, her voice dripping with smugness. In this life, I will definitely live better than you. All the blessings you didn't get to enjoy in your past life, I will enjoy them all in your place. You don't think I'll just ignore those 3 kids, do you? Don't worry, I will keep them on a very tight leash. As long as I'm here, they will still pass the college entrance exams, just the same. Like a victor declaring her sovereignty, she finished speaking, then held her head high and walked away. Lily opened her book again and continued reading. Those 3 wolf cubs, not to mention that entire family of ungrateful, wide-eyed wolves, would they really let her enjoy such a blessed life? As far as Lily knew, the reason Megan had been able to get her hands on Arthur's salary this time was because he had been transferred to another location for a month. Lily would wait and see if, in a month's time, Megan would still be as smug as she was now. Lily lowered her head. Recalling her past life, when she had been diagnosed with a severe illness, that entire family had refused to spend a dime to treat her. The day before she was murdered by Megan, Lily had bought rat poison, intending to wait for Arthur to return and poison the whole family. But right at that moment, Megan had asked her out for a walk. Thinking of their past friendship and needing an outlet to vent her pent-up frustrations, Lily had agreed. Along the way, Megan had constantly complained about Ethan, about her ungrateful daughter, and how the girl had run away with a man and never returned. When they stood at the edge of the cliff, Megan had suddenly turned to her, eyes bloodshot with hatred, and snarled. Why? I'm prettier than you. I know how to dress better than you. Why do you get to have a happy family? It's not fair. Then she pushed Lily over the edge. In just one step, it ended Lily's life, leaving the hatred she carried unavenged, turning it into an eternal regret. In the blink of an eye, a month passed. Arthur returned, and the Lawson household immediately devolved into a chaotic mess. Good news rarely traveled far, but bad news spread quickly through every village and neighborhood. People recounted the events with great excitement. You guys have no idea. As soon as he got home, his mother started crying and complaining. So, he immediately grabbed a stick and beat Megan until she was crying and begging for mercy. That old woman swallowed her pride for a whole month, and she finally got her revenge. This time, she's being as vicious as possible. But Megan was no pushover either. She made a massive scene, dragging the whole mess all the way to Arthur's military unit. Word had it that their family was originally supposed to be transferred back to the city, but because of this incident, they were held back, and no one knew when they would ever get to leave. Lily simply sat in her spot, taking a sip of tea as the corners of her lips curled up. The real show had finally begun. Someone called out to her. Lily, it's a good thing you weren't the one who married into that house. That family is impossible to live with. Lily smiled, but in her heart, she already understood everything perfectly. In her previous life, she had lived in the Lawson household for far too long. There were no secrets left that she hadn't seen right through. Arthur only knew how to listen to his mother, and whenever he was displeased, he beat his wife. His first wife hadn't died of illness at all. She had been beaten to death by Arthur himself. Even if a fairy were to descend from the heavens, his mother would never be satisfied. As for those 3 children, even though they knew full well that their father and grandmother had murdered their biological mother, they had never once resented them. Thinking of this, Lily felt even more strongly that her previous life had been entirely unworthy. Ever since the Lawson family had been barred from moving back to the city, rumors about them circulated endlessly. The two women in the house fought constantly. Every time Megan was beaten, she would go to Arthur's military unit and make a huge scene. After all, she didn't care about saving face anymore. Day after day, she just struggled to get by in her miserable life. As for Lily, although Ethan was an honest man who wasn't great at expressing his emotions, he always paid attention to her mood. Thanks to him, she lived much more comfortably in this life. During the day, she didn't dare to read books openly, and only dared to study by lamplight at night. Ethan never grudged the lamp oil. The more time she spent with him, the more she realized that he was nothing like how Megan had described him. He wasn't a cowardly man with an erratic temper. On the contrary, he was a good man. In this life, Lily was determined to hold tightly to her happiness and live a truly good life. At the end of that year, the college entrance examination was officially restored. When he heard the news, Ethan ran home, his face beaming with a smile as bright as a flower. "Honey, you guessed right. The college entrance exams are really back. You've been preparing for so long, you will definitely pass." Lily looked at him, a smile playing on her lips, but her heart was overwhelmed with emotion. In this life, her dream was finally about to come true. She no longer placed her hopes in other people. She was relying entirely on herself. Not long after, Lily took the college entrance exam. The exam questions this year weren't much different from her previous life. She had prepared very thoroughly, and with the memories of her past life, she found everything quite easy. But as soon as the news of her taking the college entrance exam spread, the whole village started whispering, "What's a woman doing studying? It's been so many years, and she still hasn't given Ethan a child. Does she not want to settle down and live a quiet life with him? Poor Ethan, treating her so well and giving her all the best food, and now he's about to lose his wife." The rumors became increasingly outrageous. Whenever Lily stepped out of the house, cold, disapproving stares surrounded her, as if she had committed some heinous crime. However, she still harbored a sense of unease in her heart. Her right eyelid twitched continuously, leaving her restless. She sat waiting in the house until nightfall, but Ethan still hadn't returned. Anxious, she thought over everything, then suddenly looked at the calendar on the wall, her face turning deathly pale. "Ethan!" Just then, a group of frantic miners ran to her house and yelled, "Lily! Ethan's been in an accident." A massive explosion seemed to go off in Lily's head. It still happened? She had thought things would be different in this life, yet the accident still occurred. She immediately rushed to the coal mine. When she arrived, she saw Ethan. His face was entirely blackened with coal dust, and his legs were covered in blood. Panicked, she screamed, "Hurry, get him to the hospital!" She grabbed his hand, her voice trembling. "Ethan, don't be afraid. We have money, we can get you treated." But he gripped her hand tightly and struggled to shake his head. "That money is for you to go to school." The surrounding workers immediately voiced their dissatisfaction. "Ethan, at a time like this, you're still worrying about her going to school? She's already older. What's the point of going to college? Aren't you afraid she'll leave you?" Lily gritted her teeth, trying her best to control her emotions, and shouted, "Shut up, all of you." Without hesitation, she immediately rushed Ethan to the hospital. Fortunately, his legs could still be saved. After the surgery, he held her hand tightly. A tall, grown man softly sobbed. "Lily, you shouldn't have sacrificed so much for me. I know what they say outside, but I was also terrified. I'm just not good enough. I can't protect you." Lily smiled and said gently, "Ethan, sometimes we need to accept that everyone has their moments of weakness. But you have done incredibly well." As soon as Ethan was discharged from the hospital, Lily's college acceptance letter also arrived. She hadn't expected to get into a top-tier, prestigious university. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned her head to look at Ethan. A fleeting look of gloom crossed his face before he suddenly said, "Lily, let's get a divorce. You deserve a vastly brighter future. Go to school and study well." Those words made her tears fall instantly. Panicked, Ethan sat in his wheelchair, reaching out his hand to wipe her tears, but he couldn't reach her. She looked straight into his eyes, her voice hoarse with emotion. "Ethan, have I ever said that I look down on you?" He shook his head. "If I haven't, then don't you ever think about that again. For the next 2 months, focus on your recovery, and then come with me to college." His eyes lit up, but he still showed some hesitation. "Lily, aren't you afraid people will look down on you?" She scoffed coldly. "Respect is something you earn yourself. I'm in my 20s and still managed to pass the college entrance exam. As long as we sit in the same classroom, we are all equals." She looked at him and said seriously, "Ethan, a person cannot live without a conscience." He turned his wheelchair around with his back to her and quietly wiped away his tears. The following September, Lily took Ethan with her, leaving the rural village to head to Boston for college. On their way out, they passed by the Lawson house. Looking through the gate, Lily saw Arthur's 3 children surrounding Megan, their voices filled with resentment. "You aren't our biological mother. What gives you the right to boss us around?" The old woman of the Lawson household, after a whole year of matching wits with Megan, looked significantly older than she had in their previous life. She stood to the side, angrily scolding, "How dare you hit my grandchild? Just wait until Arthur gets back. I'll make sure he deals with you." Megan glared at her, her voice shrill and abrasive. "You damn old hag, you just want to ruin my happiness with Arthur, don't you? If it weren't for me, do you really think anyone else would marry your son? I've been tormented until I barely look human anymore. If you keep stopping me from disciplining these 3 kids, I'll fight you to the death. Let me tell you, these 3 children are future talents. They must study properly so they can become high-ranking officials later on. Don't even think about ruining my old age." As soon as she finished speaking, her eyes suddenly caught sight of Lily. She immediately rushed over, her gaze stopping on Ethan and their luggage. Her voice was filled with astonishment. "Lily, you actually got into college?" Lily calmly replied, "Yes." Megan's eyes darted around rapidly before she suddenly sneered, glancing over at Ethan. "Are you even a man? How can you let your wife go to school? Aren't you afraid she'll dump you later? You're just a cripple. What can you even do?" Lily frowned. Before she could even speak, Ethan fired back. "My legs are almost healed. I am not a cripple. Furthermore, Lily isn't the kind of person you say she is. If you have so much free time on your hands, you should meddle less in our business." "What? She paid to treat your legs?" Megan's voice was piercing, her expression changing instantly. Ethan looked at Lily with deep affection. "If Lily doesn't care for me, who will?" All throughout that past summer, Lily had persevered in helping him practice walking, little by little. Sweat had soaked her back, but not once did she ever think of giving up. It was also during that summer that she and Ethan had truly connected on a soul-deep level. They didn't have much time left to waste. Lily quietly pushed his wheelchair away, leaving Megan with just one final sentence. "Everyone has the right to pursue happiness, but the prerequisite is that you have to rely on yourself, not just sit around waiting for things to fall into your lap." After graduating from college, Lily became a teacher. She and Ethan built a happy little family together. Occasionally, she would still hear news about the Lawson household. In this life, without Lily there to tutor them, those 3 children couldn't even dream of getting into college. They couldn't even pass the exams for a vocational school. They had no choice but to end up working as laborers in a factory. Upon realizing that none of the 3 could help change her fate, Megan finally decided to get a divorce. But how could Arthur possibly agree to that? The 2 of them constantly engaged in fierce arguments and violent physical fights. Word had it that, during one of their altercations, Arthur's mother tried to intervene to protect her son, but was accidentally pushed down the stairs to her death. With a human life now standing between the married couple, neither of them would ever be able to live in peace again in this life. Sure enough, watching vicious dogs tear each other apart was the most entertaining spectacle of all. Lily and Ethan eventually had a daughter. He loved the little girl dearly, constantly smiling warmly and saying, "Having a daughter is wonderful. A daughter who takes after her mother will definitely go to college in the future." Time had proven that he was a truly good man. In this life, Lily had firmly grasped her happiness in her own 2 hands.
This story proves you can't just steal happiness. Lily's beautiful life was the result of her own hard work and independence. At the end of the day, the best person to rely on is yourself. What did you think? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. At the end of the day,